Real estate is such an interesting part of the distributed story because it is such a driver of cost savings, where you can still invest very meaningfully in a portfolio of offices and physical experiences, but at a much more contained cost. So when we look at our approach going forward, we believe that we only need about 50% of the real estate that we would have taken on if we continued on our path from 2019 and carried it forward. And that's really interesting because 50% less real estate is very meaningful cost savings at an enterprise level. One of the things that I most wanted to do when I got to Atlassian was to analyze the business performance of our office footprint. And that was really a fun task because really there was no mechanism of doing that. There was no methodology to understand business performance of an office portfolio because the business goal of an office was simply mandate people to go there and perform work there. So it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, and real estate organizations have typically been service organizations, and we make our kind of office acquisition decisions by saying new person, new amount of square feet. And now our offices are much more in a hospitality model, and attendance is much more variable because all of our attendance, like I said, is voluntary. And so we looked at our office portfolio performance in three key ways. We looked at cost per visit, user sort of engagement or frequency, and occupancy. And that gave us metrics that showed us the financial output, the user outcomes, and the space output. So what I mean by that is for cost per visit, we looked at what it literally cost every single time the office was visited in 2019. And we looked at literally what it cost when we reopened our offices from 2021 to 2022. Unsurprisingly, many fewer visits, same fixed costs, way higher cost per visit. And so we use that as a way to say, what is a reasonable cost per visit and how do we architect our space to preserve that cost per visit based on our kind of user attendance frequency. And that's where kind of user engagement comes in. So we looked at how frequently are people coming in? Where are they coming in from? Is it a 30-minute commuting basis? Is it a 2-hour commuting basis? Or are these people coming in from out of town? In New York, we found that 50% of our visitors were coming in from out of town for these intentional togetherness visits. So that actually led us to change our office design to incorporate a space that allows for bigger groups to gather. And then when it comes to occupancy, we looked at the kind of per person square footage, which is 150 square feet per person. And we compared it to those user metrics to say, how densely are we occupied? And what does our square footage look like? How do we talk about that number in a leasing perspective versus a dollars perspective? Dollars is how we influence the CFO. Square footage is how we manage our leasing and head of real estate. So it's led to our ability to make our footprint smaller in some places where the cost per visit was too high and the user engagement was too low. And we've reinvested in opening new offices where we have naturally growing employee populations in areas like Seattle, really changing our space requirements to be much larger in India, and experimenting with things like co-working, which is a totally different cost per visit analysis than a typical managed office.